I don't know about you, but when I went on my run yesterday, I definitely had some calf tightness, and if you've been experiencing this too, let's talk through it. It might feel good to stretch your calf, but that's not necessarily the answer. What could be happening with your calf? A couple things. So first, you always want to look at your heel drop of your shoe. If your heel drop is lower, like a Hoka or an Ultra shoe is 0 drop, then your calves are going to have to work harder to propel yourself forward. I always like to think of it like if you are in a higher heel drop like Brooks or Saucony, where it's an 8 to 12 millimeter drop, pretend like your heel is in a high heel. Okay, so your heel is further off the ground, so you don't have to activate your Achilles as much, versus if it's lower to the ground, you have to now activate your Achilles a little bit more. That could be a big cause of your calf tightness. It's not necessarily anything to be alarmed with. It could be more that your calf is just having to get used to that extra new load that it has to go through and range of motion it has to go through to propel yourself forward. So I recommend if you all of a sudden just started with a lower heel drop, maybe slowly incorporate it. Use that shoe maybe once a week so you're not just all of a sudden loading that tendon, and that will help prevent that tightness. Now, if that's not the case for you and you just chronically feel like you have these tight calves, you've been stretching, you have tried foam rolling them and it feels good, maybe you've even gotten a massage and that felt great, but the tightness just came back, and that gets really frustrating. And the whole idea behind that calf tightness could be that the calf is tightening up because it's weak. I know you might be thinking, well, wouldn't it just feel like fatigued or tired? But that's not necessarily how the body works. Basically what's happening is the neuroreceptors along the calf might be lengthened, and therefore the body receives that information, the body is in the brain, receives that information as tightness. So it could be that the muscle is actually lengthened more than it should be, just compared to its normal resting state, and add running and the load on top of that, and all of a sudden the brain perceives it as tightness. But what really happens is we need to strengthen it. It's important to note that there's 2 muscles that make up your calf, and that's basically your Achilles tendon is made up of your gastrocnemius, which is the more superficial muscle. You can palpate and touch this muscle. It's basically the big beefy muscle on the back of your shin, and then also you have the soleus. Now the soleus is important because it doesn't cross the knee joint like the gastrocnemius does. So both of them cross the ankle, they go into plantar flexion of the ankle, but only the soleus stops right before the knee. The gastroc also helps to bend the knee. This is really important because when you push off the ground with each stride, your legs behind you, you're about to push off and propel yourself forward into that leg swing. That's when the soleus is activated the most. I do recommend also strengthening the gastrocnemius, but we really want to hit the soleus harder than the gastrocnemius and really focus our strengthening on the soleus. I feel like something that's not talked about a ton and should be as a runner is also addressing your running form. Because if you're loading the tendon more than you should, that's basically causing an overuse injury because you're overusing that Achilles tendon. You need to address that, because if you strengthen your Achilles, that's not necessarily going to prevent the tightness if the cause is that you're just loading it more and more with each stride. And this could be from overstriding, not getting into enough hip extension, really overstriding, which means that your ankle and your foot are striking the ground far out in front of your body, which causes more force through that Achilles tendon. So make sure you address your running form as well. That's not what we're gonna be talking about in more detail in this video, but just make sure you're addressing it too. So let's go over a couple ways to strengthen your calf. When it comes to calf tightness, there's a couple stages that you want to strengthen in. So if you know your calf is very tight and weak, one way to test it is by doing a single leg calf raise. You want to be able to do 20 single leg calf raises without stopping, which might sound like a lot. If you haven't tried it, I definitely encourage you to try it. Try it on both sides so you can compare. And you just want to see, is one side feel weaker than the other? Does it feel harder to maintain that strength as you bring your ankle up and down? That's a very good test to first start with. You're gonna go ahead, you can hold on to a wall or chair if you need to, and you're just gonna go ahead and crank out 20 single leg heel raises on both sides. So try not to stop as you lift your heel up and down. You're really trying to emphasize pushing your big toe down into the ground, lifting your heel as high up during the last couple reps as you did the first couple reps. As you finish 20, go ahead and switch and go ahead and do it on the other side here, keeping your knee straight the entire time, okay? 20 heel raises in single leg. That's gonna give you more insight into, is it actually weak or is something else going on, maybe with your hips or your running form. One of the first stages of strengthening your calves includes working on your stability. So you always want to make sure that you're working on your stability before you strengthen and before you add in plyometrics. This is going to make strengthening and plyometrics a lot easier to go through because you're building your foundation. So to start with stability, what you're going to do, I have a treadmill here. There's a little bit of a step. You can do this also off a stair. And I'm going to put the ball of my foot and my toes on the treadmill. So my heel and half of my arch / midfoot are hanging off. So from this position, and you can try this in straight leg or with your knee bent. I'm going to start with my knee straight. I'm just going to balance and hold this. So I'm really trying to push my toes into the ground or into the treadmill as I balance, and you'll feel this in your Achilles, and you can balance here for about 30 seconds, okay? That's gonna address more your gastroc, you might feel it in your calf. Next step is your soleus. So now the only difference you have to make with this exercise is your knee is slightly bent, and you're balancing here. And you're just trying to hold it, hold it. So you're gonna find that your toes are stabilizing and they have to push into the treadmill or your step in order to keep your balance. And this is very important because your big toe works to stabilize and control your foot as your foot hits the ground, but also as you push off. Keep in mind that you have a ton of muscles working together, so it's not necessarily that you only have to strengthen your calf muscle. You also wanna really address your foot stability and ankle stability as well. Now that you have your stability down, the second phase is all about building strength. So in order to build strength, you want to add some resistance or weight to those muscles. So we're going to go ahead and go through two types of exercises here, a farmer's walk and a soleus walk. So we already built your stability and your strength. Now we're going to work on your power with plyometrics, okay? So you're going to, we can start on both legs, and you're just going to jump up and down, focusing on staying quick with your motions. You can even go laterally, front and back, but the whole goal here is you're staying on the balls of your feet, you're keeping your heels up, and you're now having to produce power with your calves to keep your body going, keep it jumping at that tempo. If you don't have that stability or strength, building your power with plyometrics is going to be very difficult for you to do, so make sure you have that stability, you're building that strength. This stuff takes time to do, and then at the end, you can start adding in more plyometrics into your strength workouts. This isn't something you have to do every day, but it's definitely beneficial just to tackle on at the end of your strength workouts.